Well, with the sound of a Zamboni roaring in the background, it seems like the perfect time to talk with Coastal Orthopaedics and see what's going on in terms of how to treat and how to avoid hockey injuries. I'm Rob Adams for the HAN Network, and I'm joined by Dr. Paul Protomastro. Doctor, thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure. Good evening.
Let's talk about hockey injuries. You're a big hockey guy like me. How do you avoid injuries, first of all?
Well, the most common injuries you're going to see a head injury, shoulder injury, wrist injury, or ankle injury. And each one of them have a different injury pattern. Head injuries are a top priority these days. Helmet technology has evolved, but the reality is this is an acceleration-deceleration injury, which has to do with velocity and coming to a sudden stop. There's been an evolution in rules, an emphasis on avoiding boarding, hitting from behind, direct hits to the head. I think changes in the rules are going to have a significant impact. The other thing is a coaching thing and an experience thing, which is heads-up hockey. You watch hockey at all levels, and you know when it's coming. You know when a big hit's coming. And we teach our athletes, keep your head up and either get out of the way or brace yourself for the impact. Bending your knees, turning your shoulder to shoulder, and most importantly, knowing where you are in relationship to the boards. So most of our head injuries and shoulder injuries are going to be falling into the boards. So if you know the hit's coming, get closer to the boards, get low, and even let the boards and the glass take the impact of the hit.
Now, of course, injuries do happen. When they do happen, how do you treat them?
Well, head injury is a huge area of concern these days. If an athlete loses consciousness, becomes disoriented, becomes nauseous, vomits, that athlete is done for the game. That athlete has to be urgently evaluated either by the coaching and the training staff, or if severe symptoms occur, needs to go to the hospital. Shoulder, wrist injuries, ankle injuries, those typically don't have to go emergently to an emergency room. They can be treated at an urgent care center or going to an orthopedic surgeon's practice where x-rays, physical examination will give us a clue as to the extent of the injury, and then each injury pattern has a different treatment plan.
There are so many things that can happen in a hockey game, and again, you and I both big hockey guys, so
right.
Certainly plenty of things. What else do you see?
Well, shoulder injuries are exceedingly common in hockey, either impacting into another player or impacting into the board. So a shoulder separation, where the collarbone separates from the shoulder blade bone, or a dislocation, which is where your humerus bone comes out of the socket. Those are serious injury patterns, usually a period of convalescence and rehab. Players can come back. Surgery is often required for severe injuries. Wrist fractures, going into the boards or mid-ice collisions with your hands up and your wrist goes into extension. We see a lot of broken radius bones, scaphoid bones. Just operated on 2 of those last week from hockey, as a matter of fact. Then another big injury pattern is knee-to-knee collision. So mid-ice knee-to-knee collisions, you're going to see people breaking their femur, tearing cartilage in their knee, shattering their kneecap. We've seen all those injury patterns, and unfortunately those are pretty severe. I've got 3 kids from local hockey programs healing from surgeries to knee-to-knee collisions. And then the other one is ankle injuries. Going down and somebody landing on your ankle or pivoting, getting your skate caught in the corner, or a puck shot to the ankle. That's a vulnerable area. Luckily, the hockey boot is so supportive. We don't see too many highly displaced or severe fractures that require surgery, but they can be injuries that lay up skaters for quite a while.
By the way, do you have a favorite hockey team?
It's got to be the New York Rangers.
All right, I like the way he's thinking. Let's turn our attention now to other winter sports, because there are plenty of other great sports: skiing, basketball, track and field, wrestling. What about them?
Well, each of those sports have common injury patterns that are specific to that sport. Wrestling is infamous for causing shoulder injuries, so shoulder dislocations. The object of that sport is to dislocate the other guy's shoulder to force him into submission. So we see a lot of shoulder instability, labral tears, and those need to be evaluated quickly, and they put wrestlers out of commission for quite a while. The other one is knee injuries, so twisting your knee on the mat. Meniscal tears and ACL tears are actually fairly common in wrestling. Skiing gives us quite a variety of injuries because of the velocity. Not too much in the way of skiing injury prevention other than skiing in control, proper technique, skiing at the appropriate level. So we see fair amount of injuries, and no real joint is spared in skiing. The other one is basketball. Basketball has a unique injury pattern, tremendous amount of finger injuries. Everybody's trying to guard and protect and field the ball. Finger dislocations, finger fractures. Everybody has a story where they're playing basketball and their finger's crooked, and all of a sudden coach pulls on it and says, throw them back out there. That's reasonable for at least maybe one game, but I think if you've ever had a deformity in a finger, you should have an x-ray and have that evaluated by an orthopedic surgeon. And then the other very common injury in basketball is an ankle sprain or an ankle fracture. You go up for a rebound and you land on someone else's foot, the ankle rolls and you go down. If that swells up, that becomes bruised and you really can't walk, you definitely need to be evaluated.
And, of course, they can always go see you at Coastal Orthopaedics.
Yes, and we also have an orthopedic urgent care center, as do many of the orthopedic practices around. So just going to the emergency room like the good old days isn't always necessary. If you can get to a specialist at easy access point, that's probably better off.
Now let's turn our attention finally to, it's the season for shoveling and all these other things that we're out there doing, but slipping and falling, it's more serious and dangerous than, someone slipped and fallen. It's serious stuff.
We live in New England, right? January and February are our busiest months in practice. Because of the slippery surfaces, the most common injury is fall on an outstretched hand and breaking your wrist. On an ice storm, we'll see anywhere from 5 to 10 in one night. Slipping and falling, twisting your ankle fractures, so common on slippery surfaces. And then elderly people that need the assistive devices like canes and walkers, falling onto your hip, onto the side. A hip fracture is a life-changing event. So falls prevention is critical. Stay inside if you have trouble walking and it's slippery surfaces out. And always be very, very careful in the morning. Things start, that black ice that you can't really see, it's treacherous, and it's amazing how fast you go down. So proper footwear, good judgment, take your time walking, and be really careful on the slippery surfaces, because you're right, slips and falls lead to fractures, dislocations, and really disabling problems which require surgery, rehabilitation, and months or even years to recover from.
If they need to come see you or anyone else at Coastal Orthopaedics, how do they do so?
Well, we're accessible through Norwalk Hospital Emergency Room. We always have a doctor on call. We also have an urgent care center at the 761 Main Avenue office at the iPark building on Route 7. Or you can call our office by calling 203-845-2200.
We thank Dr. Paul Protomastro for joining us here on the HAN Network. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Always nice to talk with the good folks at Coastal Orthopaedics right here on the HAN Network.